Imagine this. You pay half your salary every month, and in return, you get to live inside something that looks suspiciously like a filing cabinet drawer. Welcome to Hong Kong housing, also known as cage homes, because apparently prison chic is a real estate category now. Now compare that to Singapore, where yes, apartments aren't exactly palaces, but at least they're not stacked like Jenga blocks with human beings inside. Singapore's housing isn't perfect, but it looks like a Netflix sci-fi set. Glass, clean lines, and elevators that actually work. Meanwhile, in Hong Kong, the elevator is broken, but don't worry, you can always climb 20 flights with your groceries. Consider it free cardio. Here's the kicker. Both cities are rich, international, and packed with bankers who like to yell into Bluetooth headsets. But one of them figured out housing policy. The other decided to play real-life Tetris with human lives. So today we're asking the savage question no property agent in Central wants you to ask. Why does Singapore's housing beat Hong Kong's cage homes every single time? Stay with me. Don't click away, because we're about to roast Hong Kong's landlords, praise Singapore's planners like they're housing superheroes, and expose how one city built dignity while the other built stacked coffins. Grab your overpriced bubble tea, sit back, and let's dive into the urban comedy show that is Singapore versus Hong Kong housing. Let's start with Hong Kong, because if you're looking for the worst housing advertisement in the world, just search Hong Kong cage homes. It looks like a documentary about rats, except the rats are investment bankers, retirees, and delivery drivers who got priced out of apartments that cost more than a Tesla every single month. Picture this, a room that measures 2 meters long and 1 meter wide. That's right, smaller than the average yoga mat, and you still pay hundreds of US dollars for it. Want a window? Too bad, you'll have to pay extra. Want privacy? Forget it. The closest you'll get is a curtain that looks like it came from a discount funeral shop. Now, of course, the Hong Kong government insists it's temporary housing. Sure, temporary like your boss's promise to review your salary next year. People live in these boxes for decades. Children grow up inside them, and families eat dinner while crouched like origami figures because the ceiling is lower than your average bunk bed. And the most insulting part, these coffin-like cages exist in the richest neighborhoods on Earth. Step outside and you'll see Gucci boutiques, bankers buying champagne, and tourists snapping selfies of Victoria Harbour. But just a few streets away, someone is brushing their teeth next to their rice cooker because there's no such thing as a kitchen. Hong Kong landlords? They call this efficient use of space. The rest of the world calls it what it really is: legalized human storage. And the price tag? More than a full 2-bedroom flat in most Southeast Asian capitals. Congratulations, you've just paid top dollar for what looks like a prison cell with Wi-Fi. This isn't just bad policy, it's housing cosplayers' dystopia. And Hong Kong wears it proudly, as if living inside a shoebox is some kind of cultural badge of honor. Now let's fly over to Singapore, the place where housing policy didn't just stumble into existence, it was engineered like a German luxury car. Seriously, the Housing and Development Board, HDB, is like Marvel's Avengers, except their superpower is making sure you don't have to live in a steel cage stacked above a mahjong parlor. Here's the wild thing. More than 80% of Singaporeans live in public housing. And no, that doesn't mean Soviet-era concrete nightmares where the elevator smells like fermented cabbage. HDB flats are clean, organised, and come with amenities that Hong Kong's cage dwellers can only dream about. Parks, food courts, childcare centres, even that magical thing called a functioning bathroom. And unlike Hong Kong, where owning a home is about as realistic as winning the lottery while being struck by lightning, Singapore made ownership a default. Want a flat? You can buy one through government schemes that tie into your salary savings. That means the average Singaporean actually has a shot at living somewhere bigger than a refrigerator box. Of course, it's not all sunshine and chili crab. Singapore flats can feel standardized, like IKEA furniture scaled up to the size of an apartment block. Everyone's kitchen looks the same, the living rooms look the same, and yes, your neighbour can probably guess what kind of curtains you have. But let's be honest, boring but spacious beats exciting but coffin-sized any day of the week. Even the resale market is relatively sane compared to Hong Kong's interstellar prices. You can still complain about affordability, and Singaporeans do, loudly, over Kopi and hawker centres. But the fact remains, at least you're complaining from a real living room, not from inside a bunk bed cage where you can touch all four walls without moving your feet. Singapore's housing system isn't glamorous, but it delivers what matters: dignity, stability, and the ability to sit on a couch without your knees touching the ceiling. That's not just good policy. In Asia, that's practically a miracle. Housing isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's about national personality. And boy, do Hong Kong and Singapore show their true colours here. In Hong Kong, people wear their suffering like it's designer fashion. Look how tough I am. I survived a 2x 6-foot cage for 20 years. My rent is more expensive than a Paris apartment, but at least I can hang my laundry over my rice cooker. It's almost masochistic pride. The worse the condition, the greater the badge of honour. If you can squeeze a whole family into a space smaller than a minivan, you're practically a local hero. Meanwhile, Singapore takes a very different approach: pragmatism with a capital P. Here, the idea isn't to glorify suffering, but to minimize it. Don't get me wrong, Singaporeans complain too. But instead of complaining about not being able to breathe inside their flat, they complain about the neighbour upstairs dragging chairs across the floor at midnight. That's a big difference. This is where culture sneaks in. Hong Kong celebrates the grind, the endless hustle, the idea that if you're not suffering, you're not really making it. Singapore, on the other hand, celebrates efficiency. If you're suffering, something's gone wrong in the system, and the government will probably draft a 200-page policy paper to fix it. And the results are visible. In Hong Kong, you see billionaires with penthouses hovering over blocks of cage homes. In Singapore, you see ministers proudly showcasing their cookie-cutter HDB flats. Because here, dignity is democratized. Sure, your flat may look exactly like your cousin's, but at least you don't need a magnifying glass to find your bedroom. So yes, one city romanticizes the struggle, the other romanticizes the spreadsheet. And honestly, give me the spreadsheet. At least it comes with a balcony and a toilet. Let's talk money, because in both cities, your wallet determines whether you live in comfort or in something that looks like a hamster cage from PetSmart. In Hong Kong, housing is not just expensive, it's absurd. Median home prices are more than 20 times the median annual income. Translation: unless you're the long-lost child of Jack Ma or you sold a kidney on the black market, you're not buying an apartment. Even renting is brutal. You could easily spend 60–70% of your paycheck just for the privilege of not sleeping under a flyover. And landlords? They laugh all the way to the bank, while tenants fight over who gets the top bunk in a cage room. Now compare that to Singapore. Still pricey, yes, but logical pricey. Housing costs hover at about 5 to 6 times median income. That's still a stretch, but at least it's not auction your organs on eBay territory. Add in government subsidies, compulsory savings through CPF, and the fact that most Singaporeans actually own their flats instead of eternally renting, and suddenly you've got stability baked into the system. It's not just individuals who benefit, the whole economy does. In Singapore, families can plan for the future because they aren't living paycheck to paycheck just to keep a roof over their heads. That means more spending on education, healthcare, and yes, those famous shopping malls. In Hong Kong, all the money vanishes into rent black holes, leaving people stressed, broke, and one argument away from moving into their parents' living room forever. The macro level picture? Singapore treats housing as a social necessity. Hong Kong treats housing as a speculative casino. One bets on people, the other bets on profit. And as history shows us, casinos always win, but players always lose. So if you're wondering why Singapore feels stable and Hong Kong feels like a pressure cooker about to explode, the answer isn't just culture. It's cold, hard economics. Let's be brutally honest. A home is not just a place to sleep. It's where you eat, argue with your spouse, binge watch Netflix, and pretend to exercise. So the size and quality of that space matter. And this is where Singapore absolutely crushes Hong Kong. In Singapore, even a modest HDB flat feels like, well, a home. You've got bedrooms that fit actual beds, living rooms where you can stretch your legs, and kitchens where cooking doesn't involve accidentally burning your curtains. Most flats are designed with airflow, greenery, and community spaces. So when you step outside, you don't just see concrete. You see parks, playgrounds, and elderly folks doing Tai Chi at sunrise. It's not glamorous, but it's civilized. Now, in Hong Kong, picture this. You wake up in a cage, bump your head on the ceiling, roll over, and your arm knocks over your instant noodles. Want a shower? Congratulations, you're standing inside the same space where you brush your teeth, wash your socks, and maybe fry an egg if you're brave. Multifunctional space, they call it. IKEA would call it a fire hazard. And the mental toll, enormous. In Singapore, families can actually host relatives, celebrate birthdays, and keep pets without feeling guilty. In Hong Kong, inviting friends over means cramming them into a box where someone has to sit on the rice cooker. It's not just undignified, it's dehumanizing. Let's not forget noise and privacy. Singapore's HDB flats might be standardized, but at least you can close a door. In Hong Kong's cage homes, privacy means whispering so your neighbor on the other side of the wire mesh doesn't hear your phone call. Imagine living like that for years. That's not housing, that's open plan suffering. So yes, in one city, housing is designed for humans. In the other, housing is designed for sardines. And surprise, sardines don't have a very high quality of life. At this point, the scoreboard isn't even close. On one side, Singapore, standardized but stable, boring but breathable, pragmatic to the bone but at least designed for human beings. On the other, Hong Kong, glamorous skyline on the outside, stacked coffins on the inside. It's like comparing a Toyota Corolla to a flaming shopping cart rolling downhill. Singaporeans don't romanticize suffering, they romanticize efficiency. You might complain that your HDB flat looks like your cousin's, but guess what? Both of you have working plumbing, functioning elevators, and a living room where you can swing your arms without knocking over your neighbor's toothbrush. In Hong Kong, people aren't complaining about their curtains clashing with the sofa. They're complaining about whether there's enough room to breathe. And here's the irony. Both cities have the same starting point. Tiny islands, no natural resources, both obsessed with finance and global prestige. But while Singapore treated housing as a social backbone, Hong Kong treated it as a luxury commodity. One city decided to give citizens dignity. The other decided to auction off dignity to the highest bidder. The result? Singaporeans build families, futures, and yes, TikTok careers from the comfort of real homes. Hong Kongers, meanwhile, are forced to play human Tetris, living in spaces smaller than prison cells while property tycoons pop champagne on Victoria Peak. So what's the final verdict? It's simple. Singapore built a housing system for citizens. Hong Kong built one for speculators. And unless you think living in a wire cage stacked like a warehouse box belongs on your vision board, there's only one clear winner. Singapore may not be perfect, but at least it remembers that citizens are human beings. Hong Kong, it remembers only the landlords. So there you have it. Singapore builds dignity, Hong Kong builds cages. One city gives its people living rooms, the other gives them broom closets and calls it urban chic. It's not even a fair fight. It's like comparing a Michelin-starred laksa to instant noodles cooked on a hot plate inside a cage. Now, before the Hong Kong property tycoons flood the comments, let me clarify. No, I'm not saying Singapore is utopia. Flats are small, resale prices sting, and yes, some neighborhoods look like government-issued Legos. But compared to the dystopian storage units being rented for luxury prices in Hong Kong, Singapore looks like paradise. And that's the real tragedy. Hong Kong had every chance to fix this. It's not about space. Singapore is also tiny. It's about priorities. Singapore prioritized people. Hong Kong prioritized profits. And once you treat housing as a casino game, don't be surprised when the house always wins and the citizens always lose. So here's my challenge to you, dear viewers. Would you rather live in a cookie-cutter flat that looks like your neighbor's, or in a designer cage that costs more than your annual salary? Drop your answers in the comments. I'll be tallying votes like a property agent desperate for commission. And if you're from Hong Kong or Singapore, I especially want to hear your stories. Have you lived in an HDB? Have you seen a cage home up close? Tell us what the reality feels like, because honestly, the world needs to know. Don't forget, like, share, and subscribe if you want more savage truths about Asia's so-called miracle cities. Because if we don't laugh at this, we'll cry. And crying inside a cage home might actually flood the entire room.